Okay. Want a minute? Let's begin reviewing again from the beginning of the second parak. So the Mishnah said, "Hayakari b'Torah." If someone was reading Torah, v'giya zman hamikra, and it comes time for Kriya Shema. Imkivin liboy, if he has intent to do Kriya Shema, then he will be yotzei. He'll fulfill his obligation. V'imlav, he doesn't have that intent, lo yotzei, he won't be yotzei. Separate piece. But prakim, in between the paragraphs of Kriya Shema, we have a machlokes. Shoyel mipnei hakavod. The first opinion is you can greet somebody who you're obligated to honor, umeshiv, and respond to such a person. Ube'emsa, in the middle of a paragraph, shoyel, you can only interrupt to greet somebody mipnei hayira, if there's somebody you're afraid of. Umeshiv, and you can answer to such a person, divrei Rabbi Meir. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says be'emtza, in the middle of a parak, shel yira, you can greet somebody. You can greet somebody only if you're afraid of them. Umeshiv, but to responding to someone who greeted you has a lower standard than mipia kavod. It could be even only someone you're only obligated to honor. And beprakim, in between the paragraphs. You can greet anybody you have obligated to honor. Umeshiv, again, you can respond a lower standard. You can respond to anybody. That's Mishnah Aleph. Mishnah Beis lists Elohim ben aprakim. Which places are considered ben aprakim? Ben bracha rishon l'shniya, between the first and second bracha. Ben shniya l'shma, between the second bracha and the paragraph of Shema, the first paragraph. Ben Shema l'vayim Shemaya, between the first and second paragraphs of Shema. Ben v'hayim Shemaya l'vayemer, between the second paragraph of Shema and the third paragraph of Shema. Ben vayemer l'emes v'yatziv, in between vayemer and emes v'yatziv, the bracha immediately after Shema. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no. Ben vayemer l'emes v'yatziv, between vayemer and emes v'yatziv, the bracha afterwards, lo yafsik, a person should not interrupt it for that. Fine. And then Amr B'Shu ben Levi, ben Karcha, B'Shu ben Karcha explains the order of Kriya Shema. Lama kadm l'Shema l'v'hayim Shemaya. Why does Shema come first and then v'hayim Shemaya? Ella, the reason is Kadesh Yikabel of Ol Malchus Shemayim. First, we want a person to accept Hashem's kingship, which he says Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and Tchila v'achar kach Yikabel of Ol Mitzvahs, and then he says v'hayim Shemaya. And then he talks about listening to doing all the things that Hashem told us to do. And v'hayim Shemaya l'vayemer. Why does v'hayim Shemaya come before vayemer? Shevahayim Shemaya naig b'yemu b'layla, because v'hayim Shemaya has mitzvahs like Torah that are mezuzah that are day and night. Vayemer eno naig el b'yem, and vayemer is talking about tzitzis, which are mitzvah. It says by tzitzis re'isa ma'isam. They're done at a time when you can see them. They don't apply, they don't apply at night, only by day. So since it's less, it's not as broad of a mitzvah. It gets demoted. It comes last. Okay. Let's see some new Mishnais. Mishnah Gimel. Hakayri es Shema v'lehi shmiya la'aznai yatsa. One who reads the Shema and he doesn't hear the words he's saying, yatsa, he still fulfills his obligation. That's the first Tana's opinion. Rabbi Yossi disagrees and says lo yatsa. And the Gemara explains that their disagreement is in really what the word Shema means. Does the word Shema mean literally to hear? In which case you'd have to say the words audibly. You'd have to be able to hear what you're saying. Or does Shema really mean to understand or comprehend? In which case,
cognitively know what's happening.
In which case it doesn't matter. You don't have to say them out loud. You just have to be aware of what you're saying. Kara v'lei diktik beis yiseha. If you read, but you were not particular in your pronunciation of the letters. So you swallowed the letters, like you said something like al levavecha. You said al levavecha. You swallowed the two lamids together into one. So you didn't have clearly every letter that should be there. Rabbi Yossi Amar Yaitz. Rabbi Yossi says you're still
Is that like a kahati, or is it
that's the Gemara. The Gemara's example is revach ben advekim, of putting space between the words that get stuck together. So whenever you have the words that start and end with the same letter. Those were the examples of places where people are likely to just lose a letter. So Rabbi Yossi Amar Yaitz, Rabbi Yossi says you're still Yaitze, because you still said it, you still have the understanding of what you're trying to say, you just don't have, it just wasn't clearly expressed, which, yeah, I'll speak out, it's obviously better to say it clearly, but if you didn't, it's still good. Rabbi Yehuda says no, so he makes a drush of v'limaditem, that you should teach them. So he says v'limidtam, you should teach them in a perfect fashion. So he requires a higher standard of clarity when you're speaking them out.
Is that a pattern? Do you see some pattern there with Rabbi Yehuda?
No, because it's Rabbi Yossi was makel the first. It was the lenient opinion the first time. The strict opinion the first time. The lenient opinion the second time. And the unnamed Tana, which could be Rabbi Yehuda, was the opposite. It was strict in the beginning and lenient in the end. So they're not consistent. They don't seem to be dependent on each other. And the Gemara says we go lenient on both.
Okay.
But if you don't hear it, or you're not particular in your pronunciation, either way you would be yotzei, and you would not have to repeat. Hakari l'mafreya, if you read literally backwards, meaning out of order, lo yatsa, you're not yotzei. You have to read at least the chapter in the order it's written in the Torah.
What does that mean? Read backwards.
If you'd read the third pasuk before the second pasuk, or if you'd invert the order of words.
Gotcha.
Karavata, if he was reading and he made a mistake, yachzul makam shata. Therefore, since you can't read out of order, so if I realize I messed up something in a pasuk in the middle somewhere, I have to go back to the pasuk I messed up and continue reading from there, because otherwise I can't just fix the missing pasuk, because then that would be out of order. Okay. Ha'umnin, someone who's working. Kairi b'reish ilan, he's in the middle of doing a job. He can stop on top of a tree and stop and read Kriya Shema. Or b'reish nidbach, he's building a wall. He could stop and say Kriya Shema on top of the wall he's building. Mash'ein rishai lasses came b'tfilo, which you can't do if for davening. And they explain the differences, because Kriya Shema, really all you need to have kavana for, you have to be thinking what you're saying for the first pasuk. So that's a short amount of time. So even if you're in not such a secure place, up in a tree or on top of a wall, you could do the first pasuk of Kriya Shema. Tefillah, which is much longer, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to have proper kavana for the whole tefillah. So you got to come down out of your tree or off your wall, even though it'll take you a little time away from your work, and daven.
This one always resonates with me because I worked in the logging industry and I used to climb trees.
Okay.
I never said the shma.
And Mishnah Hey. Chasan, another distraction halacha. Chasan pater mikriya shema balayla rishain. A chasan on his wedding night is pater from Kriya Shema ad Motzei Shabbos, until Motzei Shabbos, which the Gemara explains is they would traditionally get married on Wednesday night, so that would be the 4 nights after the wedding. Imle asa mais, if he hasn't yet consummated his marriage. Mais Rabban Gamliel, however, there was a story with Rabban Gamliel shakar balayla harishain, that on the first night, on his wedding night, he did read Kriya Shema. On the night that he got married, he did read Kriya Shema. So Amar Talmidav, his student said to him, Leli Madteinu Rabbeinu, didn't our master teach us shechasin pater mikriya Shema? It's the Mishnah we just said. A chasin doesn't have to say Kriya Shema. Why are you saying it? Balayla rishain. Amar Lahem, he said to them, Eini shamei lechem, I'm not going to listen to you. Levatel mimeni, to lose from myself Malchus Shemayim, the Malchus Shemayim afilu sha'achas. So I believe that I'm such a person that I'm being makbid on myself. I don't want to not be makabel Malchus Shemayim just because it's my wedding. So even though there might not be an obligation to do it, I'm still going to do it. Okay, let's stop here.